Solve this, and I'll marry you." Professor Adrian Keller laughed when he said it, and the laughter traveled through Calder University's largest lecture hall before anyone had time to decide whether the sentence was funny. 300 students turned toward the woman standing beside the center aisle with a mop in her hands. Selena Bautista Mercado did not laugh. She was 38, Filipina, and dressed in the Navy custodial uniform she had worn through 5 years of evening shifts. A silver name badge rested above her pocket. Her dark hair was tied at the nape of her neck, and one yellow glove still covered her right hand. She had entered because someone had spilled water near the front row. She had expected to clean the floor and leave unnoticed. Instead, Adrian had seen her studying the equation on the board. It was the final problem in his public seminar on urban network stability, a dense arrangement of symbols describing how a transportation system responded when one connection disappeared. He had told the audience that no one had yet found a practical solution under the conditions he had imposed. Then he noticed Selena's gaze. "You look as if you disagree," he had said. Selena had answered before caution could stop her. "The third condition contradicts the first." That was when Adrian made his careless offer. Now dozens of phones were raised. Some students smiled at her encouragingly. Others watched with a bright curiosity, people reserved for moments they believed belonged to someone else. Selena looked at the board again. For years, she had trained herself not to pause near equations. She cleaned laboratories without reading open notebooks, erased boards only after photographing them for professors, and kept her own calculations folded inside the pocket of her work bag. At Calder, competence made her reliable. Curiosity made her visible. She had survived by understanding the difference, but the flaw on the board was so clear that ignoring it felt dishonest. "May I use the chalk?" she asked. The room quieted. Adrian's smile weakened. He stepped aside. Selena placed the mop against the wall, removed her glove and walked to the board. Her practical shoes made almost no sound. She erased one assumption, rewrote a boundary condition, and divided the network into groups defined not by distance but by consequence. Her handwriting was small and disciplined. Every line followed from the last. Adrian stopped smiling. She explained that the model treated every interruption as if it affected travel in both directions equally. Real passengers did not move that way. A missed connection at the beginning of a route could close several later choices, while the same delay near the destination might change almost nothing. "You are measuring broken links," Selena said. "You should be measuring lost options." No one interrupted her. She completed the proof in 23 minutes. When she put down the chalk, the impossible problem had become a practical one, with an answer that could be tested. Adrian stared at the board. "Where did you learn this?" "Before I worked here." "That is not an answer. It is the answer I am giving today." A few students began to clap. The sound spread carefully, then filled the hall. Selena felt heat rise along her face, but she did not look away from Adrian. He glanced toward the audience, suddenly aware of every phone. The confident professor who had controlled the room minutes earlier seemed to understand that the next sentence mattered more than the first. "I was wrong," he said. The applause faded. "About the equation?" Selena asked. "About the equation and about speaking to you as if you were part of a performance." Selena nodded once. She put her glove back on, retrieved the mop, and finished drying the water beside the first row. The ordinary action unsettled the room more than any dramatic exit could have done. After the seminar, students crowded around the board while Selena pushed her cart through a service corridor. Her hands remained steady until the elevator doors closed. Then she released the breath she had been holding. She expected Adrian to follow. Instead, the elevator descended alone. Outside, evening fog had begun to soften the campus lights. Selena crossed the mathematics courtyard toward the maintenance building. A small orange and white cat emerged from beneath a bench and walked beside the cart. "You missed the lecture, Miso," she said. The cat looked up without apology. Miso belonged officially to no one. He slept near the heating vents, accepted meals from 3 departments, and appeared whenever Selena's shift reached the courtyard. She had learned that he disliked closed doors and construction barriers. When a familiar path changed, He did not force his way through. He paused, returned to a known place and selected another route. That habit had once helped her think about networks differently. Tonight, however, Miso followed her all the way to the employee entrance. Renee Alvarez, the evening facilities manager, was waiting inside with Selina's phone in her hand. "It has been vibrating in your locker for 10 minutes. Selina removed her gloves. The screen showed messages from co-workers, 2 unknown numbers and 17 notifications from her sister. The seminar recording had already begun circulating. Renee watched her face. "Do you want me to tell people you are unavailable?" Selina almost said yes. Disappearing had protected her before. Yet the equation on the board now carried no name, and hundreds of recordings would soon decide what the moment meant. Her mother had taught her that silence could preserve dignity when a room had no interest in listening. Professor De Vera had taught her something different. Silence also allowed weaker explanations to become permanent. Selina had needed both lessons at different times. Standing in the maintenance office, she realized that choosing between them required more than endurance. It required judgment. She could refuse the spectacle without surrendering the truth of what she had done. She could return every call later after the noise settled, but she could not permit Calder to describe her contribution as a charming interruption in someone else's lecture. "Tell them I'm finishing my shift," she said. "After that, I will speak for myself." Renee handed back the phone. "Good." Miso sat outside the glass door, his tail wrapped around his feet. Selina looked at him, then at the messages multiplying across the screen. She understood that her quiet life had changed, but not in the way the laughing audience imagined. The professor's joke had not created a promise. Solving the equation had not created a debt. What it had created was a door. For the first time in years, Selina intended to decide for herself whether to walk through it. By 6 the next morning, strangers had given Selina 3 different lives. In one version, she was a custodian who had discovered a gift overnight. In another, she was a mysterious genius who had hidden inside Calder University. In the most popular version, she was the woman who had earned a professor's impossible marriage promise. None of them were true. Selina sat at the kitchen table in the Daly City apartment she shared with her younger sister Beatrice. Fog pressed against the window, a pot of rice warmed on the counter, and Miso occupied the chair between them as if he had always lived there. He had followed Selina to the parking lot after her shift. When he climbed into her car and refused to leave, Renee had lent her a carrier from the campus clinic. The arrangement was supposed to last 1 night. Beatrice scratched beneath the cat's chin. "He has already changed his address. He is visiting. He is sitting on your mail." Selina moved an envelope from beneath one paw. Her phone continued to light up. She had answered only their mother's video call from Quezon City and one message from Calder's communications office. Beatrice turned the laptop toward her. The paused recording showed Selina at the board and Adrian standing several feet away. "You look calm," Beatrice said. "I was calculating. Everyone else thought you were changing your life. I was correcting a sign." Beatrice studied her. "Those can be the same thing." Selina closed the laptop. At 9, she returned to campus wearing the same uniform. Reporters waited near the main entrance, so Renee guided her through a service door. No one in facilities treated her as a different person. David Ross asked whether the third-floor recycling had been collected. Rosa from Building Services gave her half a breakfast roll. The familiarity steadied her. Adrian waited in Renee's office. He stood when Selina entered. He had abandoned the suit jacket and looked as if he had slept very little. A folder rested unopened on his lap. "I asked Professor Keller to wait here because this is your workplace," Renee said. "You decide how long the meeting lasts." Selina appreciated the sentence. 10 minutes. Renee left the door partly open. Adrian did not begin with the equation. "I am sorry." Selina waited. "What I said was dismissive. I turned your observation into entertainment, and I put you in front of an audience without asking whether you wanted to be there." "Yes." He seemed surprised by the simplicity of her answer. "I cannot remove the recording," he continued, "but I can correct how the university describes what happened. Your solution must carry your name." "It is not only a solution." "I know. The consequence grouping changes the model itself." For the first time, Selina heard respect without performance in his voice. Adrian placed the folder on the desk, but did not push it toward her. The department chair wants to offer you a research appointment. Based on 23 minutes? Based on the mathematics. You do not know enough about my mathematics. Then allow us to learn. Selina looked at the folder. My work schedule is not a costume I remove when the interesting part begins. I have responsibilities here. Understood. And I will not enter a project where someone else explains my ideas for me. Adrian's eyes lowered briefly. Understood. The joke is not an agreement. Nothing personal is owed to you because I solved the problem. Nothing, he said immediately. I would like the university to state that publicly. Selina had expected persuasion. His willingness to accept boundaries made the conversation harder, because it required her to consider the opportunity rather than reject the man offering it. She opened the folder. The temporary appointment included paid research hours, access to computing resources, and a formal authorship review. The terms were imperfect but serious. I will read it, she said. Thank you. That is not acceptance. I know. When Adrian reached the door, Selina stopped him. The assumption you called elegant yesterday was the reason the model failed. He turned. Elegance is not evidence, she said. No, he replied, it is not. That afternoon, Selina worked her usual route. Outside Lecture Hall A, she found the board preserved behind a transparent screen. A printed card read, Solution by Selina Bautista Mercado. She stood before it longer than she intended. Her full name had once appeared on university records in the Philippines. First, at the Technological University of the Philippines, later in a graduate transportation program in Quezon City. She had completed research on commuter systems and prepared for a defense that never occurred. When family circumstances brought her to California, full-time work became necessary. One postponed semester became several years. She had told herself the work remained hers, even if no institution displayed it. Seeing her name beside the proof revealed how much she had missed being answerable to ideas instead of only to schedules. 2 students entered and stopped when they recognized her. One began reaching for a phone, then lowered it. Ms. Mercado, the student said, we wanted to thank you. The way you explained lost options made more sense than the original lecture. Selina resisted the urge to leave, then remembered the explanation, not the performance around it. The second student nodded. Will you teach here? I have not decided what I will do here. The answer disappointed them, but it also belonged entirely to her. They thanked her again and moved toward the seats. Neither asked about marriage. That small restraint gave Selina more confidence than the thousands of enthusiastic comments she had refused to read. Miso appeared beneath the screen and touched one paw to the wall. You are not permitted inside, Selina whispered. He walked through the open lecture hall door. Selina followed and found him sitting beneath the first line of her proof. The room was empty. Morning light crossed the seats where students had laughed. She took the research agreement from her bag and read it again. At the bottom, beneath the university terms, Adrian had added one handwritten sentence. All foundational claims remain subject to Dr. Mercado's authorship review. She had not used that title in America. Technically, she had never completed the final defense that would make it official. Adrian either misunderstood or had made another careless assumption. Selina took out a pen and crossed out Doctor. She wrote Ms. above it, then added a condition of her own. No public announcement until scope, credit, schedule, and authority are agreed in writing. She signed beneath the amendment. Miso jumped onto the front desk and sat beside the papers. This is temporary, Selina told him. His expression suggested that he had heard the same claim about the apartment. Selina's first research meeting began at 7 in the morning because her custodial shift began at 3 in the afternoon. She arrived at the mathematics building carrying 2 bags. One held her laptop and notebooks, the other contained her uniform and lunch. The arrangement made her feel divided before anyone spoke. Adrian had reserved a small conference room rather than the lecture hall. 2 graduate assistants waited inside. Naomi Chen specialized in verification. Eli Brooks built transit simulations, and spoke quickly whenever silence lasted longer than 3 seconds. Adrian began to introduce Selina. She lifted one hand. "I can introduce myself." He stopped. "Of course." Selina described her education, her unfinished graduate defense, and the model she had developed in Quezon City. She did not turn the interruption in her academic path into a tragedy. It had been a decision shaped by practical needs. Still, saying it aloud made the missing years visible. Naomi asked the first useful question. "Does consequence grouping require passenger-level data?" "Not necessarily," Selina said. "It requires a way to estimate which future choices close after each decision." Eli opened the existing simulation. Colored lines filled the screen. "We can test that on the campus shuttle network." "Only if the network includes walking transfers," Selina replied. "The shuttle data does not track them." "Then the model does not yet represent the system people use." Adrian leaned toward the keyboard. "We can approximate walking time by distance." Selina looked at him. "A staircase and an accessible ramp can connect the same 2 points at different costs. Distance alone hides that." His hand withdrew. "What would you use?" It was a small correction, but she noticed it. He had asked instead of defending his first idea. They spent the morning building a test that included time, direction, accessibility, and missed connections. By noon, the first result appeared. Selina's method preserved more future routes than Adrian's original model, but it required much more computation. Eli frowned at the response time. "A planner cannot wait 4 minutes during a disruption." "Then we have not solved the practical problem," Selina said. Adrian pointed to the accuracy score, "but we have proved the principle." "People do not travel through principles." The room became quiet. Naomi turned her screen so everyone could see. "Both statements are true. The structure works, and the implementation is too slow." Selina felt the old impulse to retreat. In past academic rooms, disagreement had often become a contest over who could speak with the greatest certainty. She had learned to save her strongest arguments until she could present them perfectly. But perfection had kept too much of her work inside notebooks. "We need a smaller state," she said. Eli looked up. "Smaller how?" Selina drew a sequence of route decisions. Most locations mattered only once. A few mattered repeatedly because travelers used them to reorient when conditions changed. A central station, an accessible entrance, a familiar courtyard. "The model does not need to remember every position equally," she said. "It needs to remember places from which several responsible choices remain possible." Adrian studied the drawing. "Anchor states." The phrase settled over the table. Selina thought of Miso pausing beneath the courtyard bench whenever construction blocked his path. The bench did not bring him to his destination. It gave him a safe place from which to choose again. "Yes," she said, "anchor states." They reduced the computation from minutes to seconds, but the model created a new error. When a route doubled back through an anchor, it treated the return as fresh progress and sometimes repeated the same recommendation. "It has no directional memory," Naomi said. Eli rubbed his eyes. "Every improvement reveals another problem." "That is what testing is for," Selina replied. At 2:30 she closed her laptop and changed into her uniform. Adrian watched her place the research notes carefully into one bag and remove work gloves from the other. The 2 bags represented more than scheduling. The custodial job paid the rent reliably, contributed to her health insurance, and had given her a community when California still felt temporary. Research offered no such certainty. The appointment lasted 12 weeks and could end with a polite letter. Selina refused to romanticize risk simply because mathematics was involved. She wrote every research hour on a calendar, calculated transportation expenses, and agreed with Beatrice that no household bill would depend on money Calder had not guaranteed. Returning to intellectual work mattered. Remaining responsible for the life she had already built mattered too. "The department can request that facilities release you from the evening shift," he said. "The department can request it after we agree on a permanent position. Until then, this job remains real." "I did not mean it was not real." "I know, but you still speak as if one kind of work begins where the other ends." Adrian considered the observation. "You are right." Selina expected an explanation. None came. During her shift, she cleaned the same conference room where they had worked. Naomi's discarded diagrams filled the recycling bin. Eli had left a charger beneath the table. On the board, Adrian had written Angkor States and circled it twice. Selina erased everything except the phrase. Near the courtyard, she found Miso waiting beside her cart. A temporary construction fence blocked the direct path to the maintenance building. The cat approached the barrier, turned, and returned to the familiar bench. From there, he watched the moving equipment, then chose a longer path beneath the covered walkway. Selina followed slowly. Halfway around the building, Miso stopped and looked back. The fence had shifted, creating a shorter opening behind them. He did not reverse direction. He continued toward the destination he had already chosen. Directional memory. Selina removed her phone and recorded the route, not to turn the cat into a scientific demonstration, but to preserve the question his behavior had clarified. At home, Beatrice found her rebuilding the simulation at the kitchen table, while Miso slept beside the laptop. "You worked 2 jobs today," Beatrice said. "1 job and 1 temporary appointment. You are smiling at both." Selina touched the trackpad. The revised model now remembered not only which anchor had been reached, but the direction from which it had been entered, and the choices already rejected. The repeated loop disappeared. For years, Selina had believed returning to mathematics would mean recovering the person she had been before leaving the Philippines. The thought had made every attempt feel like an examination she was already late to complete. Watching the clean route appear on the screen, she understood something different. She did not need to return to an earlier version of herself. She could begin from where she stood. The campus shuttle test failed at 8:17 on a Tuesday morning. Nothing dramatic happened. No vehicle stopped. No passenger was placed in danger. The simulation simply recommended holding the East Shuttle for 40 seconds so 6 riders could make a connection. The choice looked efficient on the screen. In practice, it delayed an accessible van scheduled to meet another rider at the library entrance. Selina noticed because she was standing beside Maya Alvarez, Calder's transportation planner, in the dispatch office. Maya read the recommendation, shook her head, and selected the existing schedule instead. "Your model saved 6 connections and made one person's trip unreliable," she said. Adrian stood behind them with Naomi and Eli. "The system assigned the van transfer a lower probability." "The rider had already confirmed," Maya replied. Eli checked the data stream. "That confirmation is stored in a separate system." Selina looked at the map. "Then our model is confident because it is uninformed." Adrian crossed his arms. "We cannot integrate every campus database before the pilot. Then we must limit what the recommendation claims." Maya turned from the console. "That sentence is why I agreed to this test." They returned to the conference room, with the failed recommendation displayed on 3 screens. Adrian wanted to improve the data connection. Eli proposed a temporary manual flag. Naomi asked whether the model should ever recommend a route change when accessibility information was incomplete. Selina listened until the conversation became circular. "We are treating uncertainty as an empty space," she said. "It is not empty. Missing information has consequences." She added a rule. When a recommendation depended on unavailable accessibility or confirmed transfer data, the system would display alternatives without ranking them. A human planner would retain authority. Adrian read the rule twice. "That makes the model less decisive. It makes the model more honest." He paced to the window. The courtyard below was busy with students moving between classes. A tool that refuses to recommend may not be useful. A tool that recommends beyond its evidence may be less useful. Maya nodded. Dispatchers already know that saying, "I need more information," is a decision. Adrian returned to the table. His frustration was visible, but his voice remained controlled. "Test it." The revised version produced 3 options and identified the missing confirmation. Maya selected one in 11 seconds. "Useful enough," she said. That afternoon, Adrian found Selina replacing supplies in Lecture Hall A. He remained near the door so she would not feel cornered. "I argued for decisiveness because the original grant promised automated recommendations," he said. Selina continued arranging the cabinet. "The evidence changed." "I know," she faced him. Do you? He accepted the question. I know that I was protecting the shape of the project instead of the purpose of it. The answer was more honest than she expected. Why? She asked. Because the project has my name on it. I confused being responsible for it with needing to be right about it. Selina closed the cabinet. Names can make people protect the wrong thing. Including you? She considered taking offense, then recognized the question as genuine. Yes, she said. I protect my work by keeping it private. That also keeps it from being tested. They stood in the quiet hall beneath the equation that had brought them there. Then we both need better habits, Adrian said. Habits require repetition. I was afraid you would say that. Selina almost smiled. The project settled into a routine. Research mornings, facilities afternoons, dinner with Beatrice when schedules aligned. Miso's visits became permanent after the campus clinic confirmed that no owner had registered him. He learned the sound of Selina's car keys and occupied her notebooks whenever she worked too late. The routine was not graceful. Selina sometimes fell asleep on the evening train and woke one station beyond Daly City. She once arrived at a research meeting with a clean uniform, but no laptop charger. Beatrice began placing containers of food beside the apartment door because Selina remembered equations more reliably than lunch. None of these mistakes became a crisis, but together they challenged Selina's belief that strength meant managing every obligation without visible help. She learned to accept a ride from Renee, a corrected test from Naomi, and a reminder from her sister without converting each kindness into a debt she had to repay immediately. The recording from the seminar still circulated, but the university's official page now identified Selina by name and described the marriage line as an inappropriate joke, for which Adrian had apologized. Selina approved the wording because it closed the subject without pretending the moment had not occurred. Attention brought invitations. A local news program wanted her to solve another problem on camera. A technology company offered a promotional contract. She declined both. Professor Lorna de Vera, her former advisor in Quezon City, sent a different message. Your proof is not an accident. Neither is the work you left unfinished. Call me when you are ready to discuss the difference between delay and ending. Selina read the message 3 times. During their video call, Professor de Vera did not congratulate her. She asked for the new model, questioned 2 definitions, and found a weakness in the proof within 15 minutes. Selina felt unexpectedly relieved. You are pleased that I found a problem, Lorna observed. It means you are reading the mathematics, not the story around it. The story is noisy. The mathematics is also incomplete. I know. Lorna leaned closer to the camera. Do you want to finish your degree? Selina looked toward the living room. Beatrice was reading on the couch. Miso slept beneath the lamp. The apartment did not feel like the place where her academic life had disappeared. It felt like one of the anchors from which another route might remain possible. I want to finish the work, Selina said. That was not my question. Selina understood. Completing research and accepting the title attached to it were different choices. Yes, she said after a moment. I want to finish my degree. Lorna nodded as if recording a result. Then we will examine what can transfer, what must be repeated, and what your new work changes. After the call, Selina opened the old dissertation files she had not touched in years. The first pages felt familiar. The final pages felt like letters from someone she remembered, but no longer needed to become. She created a new document. At the top, she wrote, Consequence Groups, Directional Memory, and Responsible Choice in Urban Networks. Miso placed 1 paw on the keyboard and added 7 meaningless letters. Selina deleted his contribution. Authorship must be earned, she told him. Then she began again. The first public test of Selina's model began with a cat refusing to cross a courtyard. Calder had planned a quiet Saturday demonstration for a small review committee. Maya would supervise simulated shuttle disruptions, while Naomi and Eli monitored the system. Adrian would explain the original architecture. Selina would present consequence grouping, directional memory, and the limits placed on automated recommendations. No audience had been invited. At 8 that morning, however, A construction crew placed temporary barriers across the mathematics courtyard. Miso, who had accompanied Beatrice to campus in his carrier, stepped out on a harness and stopped beside the restored bench. His ordinary route to the laboratory was closed. "He can stay with me," Beatrice said. Selina watched Miso study the barrier. "Give him a moment." The cat returned to the bench, looked toward the covered walkway, then selected a longer path along the library wall. Halfway there, a rolling equipment cart temporarily blocked the walkway. Miso paused again but did not return to the courtyard. He moved to a low planter, waited for the cart to pass and continued. Evelyn Hart, the committee's external reviewer, had arrived in time to observe the entire route. "Is that the famous research cat?" she asked. "He is not part of the demonstration," Selina said. "That is usually when the useful demonstration begins." Inside the laboratory, the formal test presented the model with 12 network disruptions. It performed well on the first 7. On the 8th, 2 anchors became unavailable in sequence. The system kept trying to preserve a connection that had already lost its value. Eli's hands moved over the keyboard. "It remembers the rejected route. It does not understand that the destination window has closed." Maya cancelled the recommendation before it reached the simulated dispatch screen. Adrian looked toward the reviewers. "We can restart with the corrected time window." Selina shook her head. "The failure belongs in the test. We know the cause. Then we should be able to explain it." The room waited. Months earlier, Selina might have protected the work by minimizing the error. Adrian might have protected it by restarting the demonstration. Now both instincts were visible to her, and visibility created a choice. She walked to the board. "An anchor is useful only while meaningful options remain reachable from it," she said. The model preserved location and direction, but ignored expiration. It treated a route as valuable because it had been valuable 40 seconds earlier. Evelyn folded her arms. "What does the system do when value expires?" "At present, the wrong thing." No one laughed. Selina drew Miso's courtyard route. The bench had served as his first anchor. The planter had served as a second. He had not returned to the bench after reaching the covered walkway because the earlier choice was no longer relevant. A responsible system must release an old option when preserving it begins to close better ones, she said. That requires time windows, not only states. Naomi began writing a test before Selina finished speaking. Eli modified the simulation so expired options remained visible in the record, but could not control the next recommendation. Adrian revised the proof conditions. The reviewers watched them work for 50 minutes. When the 8th scenario ran again, the system released the failed connection, identified 2 remaining choices, and allowed Maya to select between them. It completed the other 4 disruptions without exceeding its authority. Evelyn closed her notebook. "So you have not shown us a finished model?" Adrian inhaled, preparing to answer. Selina spoke first. "No, we have shown you a model that can reveal and correct its limits." Evelyn's expression softened. "That may be more valuable." After the committee left, the team sat around the conference table with paper cups of tea and a container of pastries Beatrice had brought. Miso slept inside his open carrier. "The review could have ended differently," Adrian said. "Because the model failed?" Eli asked. "Because I wanted to hide the failure inside a restart." Selina looked at him. Public admission did not erase his earlier mistake, but it demonstrated the habit he was trying to build. "You did not restart it," she said. "You stopped me. Next time, stop yourself." Naomi raised her cup. "To measurable progress." They touched paper cups without ceremony. On Monday, Calder offered Selina a 1-year research fellowship with protected time to complete a new dissertation pathway. Facilities offered a reduced schedule during the transition. Professor De Vera agreed to serve as an external advisor. The proposal named Selina as lead author of consequence grouping and co-designer of the anchor state model. She read every line at the kitchen table while Beatrice prepared dinner. "You have checked the authorship paragraph 4 times, Beatrice said. 5. "Does it change?" "Not yet." "And the salary?" "Acceptable." "The schedule?" "Difficult, but possible." Beatrice sat opposite her. "Then what are you afraid of?" Selina looked down at the signature line. That people will think the seminar gave this to me. The seminar gave you attention. Your work gave you the offer. Attention changes how people remember causes. Then keep correcting the record. You are good at correcting things. Miso jumped onto the empty chair and watched them both. Selina thought about the professor's laugh, the board, the phones, and the story strangers preferred. She could spend years proving that the careless joke had no authority over her life. Or she could build a life whose truth became larger than the joke. The next morning, she met Adrian and Renee in Lecture Hall A. Renee carried the fellowship agreement. Adrian carried nothing. "Before I sign," Selina said, "I want one point understood. I am not leaving facilities because the work is beneath me. I am changing roles because my path is changing." Renee nodded. Work can matter without being permanent. Adrian remained silent until Selina looked at him. "And the research?" he asked. "It will carry every contributor's name. It will be tested by people who use the systems, not only by people who design them. It will not pretend certainty where none exists." "Agreed," Selina signed. Through the open door, morning light entered the lecture hall. The equation from the seminar had been erased weeks earlier, but she could still see its shape in memory. It no longer looked like the moment her life had changed. It looked like the moment she had finally allowed change to become visible. Outside, Miso waited beside the courtyard bench with Beatrice. Selina walked toward them carrying the agreement in one hand and her old notebook in the other. She had not reached a destination. She had reached an anchor. On the first morning of her fellowship, Selina discovered that changing roles was easier on paper than in a hallway. She arrived at Calder wearing charcoal trousers, a pale blue blouse, and the same practical shoes she had used on her custodial shifts. Her temporary office was on the 4th floor of the mathematics building, 2 doors from Adrian's. Someone had placed a new brass plaque beside it. Selina Bautista Mercado, Research Fellow. She had spent years passing that door with a cart. Now 3 former co-workers were replacing ceiling panels above it. The reversal did not make her feel triumphant. It made her conscious of how easily a door could change what people assumed about the person standing beside it. In uniform, she had been trusted with keys to every room and invited into almost no conversation. With a fellowship badge clipped to her blouse, strangers greeted her before learning what she did. Selina did not want resentment to become another form of vanity, but she refused to pretend she had not noticed the difference. David Ross climbed down from the ladder and smiled. "Morning, Professor." "Research Fellow," Selina corrected. "Morning, Research Fellow." The teasing was gentle, but she heard what neither of them said. Yesterday they had shared assignments. Today he was working above her office while she carried a laptop inside. "The panel near the window still rattles when the air starts," she said. David pointed to the replacement in his hand. "We remember things too." Selina accepted the correction. "Then I will let you work." Her office contained a desk, 2 chairs, and a window overlooking the courtyard bench. A cardboard box held university supplies. On top lay a printed schedule prepared by Adrian. Research meetings, dissertation consultations, a regional planning workshop, and a public lecture titled "The Woman Who Solved the Impossible Equation." Selina carried the page into his office. "This title is impossible," she said. Adrian looked up from his computer. "The communications office proposed it. The equation was not impossible. It was incorrectly defined. I told them you might object." "You could have objected." He leaned back. "You're right." He opened the event page and replaced the title while she stood there. "Consequence Groups in Responsible Transit Design." "Better?" he asked. "Accurate." "Communications will say it attracts fewer people. Then the people who attend may want the actual lecture." Adrian sent the revision without debate. The first weeks of the fellowship required Selina to make decisions she had once avoided. Naomi and Eli now brought questions to her before bringing them to Adrian. Maya requested a written explanation for every recommendation the model could not make. Professor De Vera scheduled weekly calls and returned Selina's dissertation pages covered with exacting comments. Selina welcomed the work. Authority was harder. When Eli submitted a simulation report containing an error, she corrected the formula herself at midnight rather than ask him to repeat it. The next morning he stared at the revised file. Was my version that bad? One variable was mislabeled. Then why didn't you tell me? It was faster to fix. Naomi glanced over her monitor. Faster today. Selina recognized the phrase as one of her own arguments about responsible systems. A shortcut that saved time now could remove someone's chance to improve later. She restored Eli's version and marked the error. Please correct it and document what changed, she said. He nodded. I can do that. The exchange took 11 minutes. It also prevented the same error from appearing in the next test. Leadership, Selina began to understand, was not proving she could carry everyone's work. It was creating conditions in which the work could be carried together. At home, a different transition was underway. Miso had decided that every flat surface belonged to him. He occupied Selina's dissertation pages, slept inside her empty work bag, and learned to open the loose cabinet beneath the kitchen sink. Beatrice installed a child-proof latch and called it his first peer-reviewed rejection. One evening, Selina found a folded piece of navy fabric on her bed. It was her clean custodial uniform. Renee said you can return it whenever you are ready, Beatrice said from the doorway. Selina ran her fingers across the embroidered name. She had kept one weekend shift during the transition, partly for income and partly because leaving completely felt like denying the years that had supported her. I'm still scheduled Saturday, she said. I know. You think I should stop? I think you should decide whether the shift serves your life now or only reassures the person you used to be. Miso stepped into the room, climbed onto the uniform, and curled into a circle. He thinks it serves him, Selina said. On Saturday, she completed her route more slowly than usual. Every room carried 2 histories. She remembered cleaning the laboratory where her model now ran, emptying Adrian's recycling before he knew her name, and pausing outside seminars she had never imagined entering as a colleague. Near the end of the shift, Renee joined her beside the supply closet. You do not owe this department a ceremonial goodbye, Renee said. I do not want anyone to think I am ashamed of the work. People who know you will not think that. People who do not know you will invent something regardless. Selina looked at the shelves she had organized so many times. This job gave me stability. Then honor it by using the stability to move. At 4, Selina placed her keys in Renee's palm. They embraced briefly without speeches. David lifted 2 fingers from across the corridor. Rosa promised to save her a breakfast roll when she visited. Outside, Adrian waited beside the courtyard bench. Miso sat on the bench between him and Beatrice, wearing his blue harness. This is not a committee, Selina said. We were instructed to wait, Adrian replied, looking at the cat. Beatrice handed Selina her old notebook. You left this in the car. Inside were equations written during meal breaks and observations recorded after midnight shifts. Selina held the notebook against her uniform. She had once believed dignity required keeping each part of her life separate. Immigrant and scholar, custodian and researcher, provider and dreamer. Yet every part had taught the next one how to endure. She did not need to erase the uniform to deserve the office. Selina folded it carefully, placed it in her bag, and walked toward the mathematics building with the others. Miso jumped down and followed. This time, when she reached the 4th-floor hallway, she did not hesitate beside the plaque. She unlocked her office and opened the door. Selina's dissertation committee did not question whether she belonged in the room. They questioned everything else. Professor De Vera appeared on a large screen from Quezon City. Evelyn Hart sat at the far end of Calder's conference table. Adrian attended as a project advisor but had no vote. The committee's 3rd member, Professor Malcolm Reed, specialized in public systems and had a reputation for reducing complicated claims to one uncomfortable sentence. He read Selina's proposal, removed his glasses, and asked, "Who gets to define a responsible choice?" Selina had prepared for questions about proofs, computation, and validation. The broader question made every polished slide feel insufficient. The system identifies choices that preserve access, time, and future options, she said. That tells me how. I asked who. She looked toward the diagram on the screen. Her model assigned value according to rules created by its designers. Even honest rules contained judgment. At present, the research team defines it, she said. Malcolm replaced his glasses. Then your next task is clear. After the meeting, Adrian called the review encouraging. Selina called it incomplete. Both can be true, Naomi said. They turned the next phase into a series of listening sessions with the people who used and operated transportation systems. Maya invited dispatchers, shuttle drivers, campus staff, adult students, and residents from neighborhoods near Calder. Selina removed the stage from the workshop room and arranged the chairs in a circle. The first session lasted 2 hours. A night student explained that a route arriving 10 minutes earlier was not helpful if it left before her shift ended. A facilities employee described carrying equipment between buildings and avoiding stairs even though he did not use an accessibility service. A dispatcher noted that passengers often chose the route they understood over one that was theoretically faster. Selina filled 6 pages with notes. Adrian filled 12. During the break, he approached her beside the coffee station with 2 cups of tea. I thought we were modeling availability, he said. We were modeling what was easiest to count. That is common. You sound less surprised than I feel. People who clean buildings know that maps leave out half the doors. He handed her 1 cup. I should write that down. You already have 12 pages. The second session brought disagreement. One group valued predictable arrival times. Another preferred more choices, even if timing varied. A driver warned that too many alternatives on a dispatch screen could delay action. No single definition satisfied everyone. Selina had expected the sessions to provide answers. Instead, they exposed the temptation hidden inside her request for participation. She had wanted people to confirm a framework she already understood. Listening became meaningful only when their experiences were permitted to alter it. She cancelled the afternoon presentation, gave the remaining time back to discussion, and asked participants to mark the points where the model misunderstood their daily decisions. The map was soon covered with handwritten notes. Some contradicted one another. All of them described a life the clean digital network had failed to show. Eli grew frustrated. If every person defines value differently, the model cannot optimize anything. Selina faced the whiteboard, where conflicting priorities crowded the surface. Maybe it should not optimize one thing. Naomi understood first. It can protect minimum conditions and let users choose among the rest. They redesigned the model around guarantees rather than a universal ranking. It would reject options that violated confirmed access needs or closed every reasonable future route. Among the remaining options, it would explain trade-offs instead of declaring one choice objectively best. The change made the mathematics less tidy and the tool more useful. It changed the team as well. Eli stopped describing users as variables when workshop participants were present. Naomi created a public record connecting each design decision to the concern that had prompted it. Adrian proposed naming every community advisor in the research report, then asked Selina whether recognition should include payment. She answered yes. Calder approved modest stipends, a practical acknowledgement that lived knowledge was not a decorative contribution. It also delayed Selina's dissertation schedule by 6 weeks. At home, she spread revised pages across the dining table. Miso walked along the perimeter, carefully avoiding the paper until he found the one page she needed and sat on it. You are an argument against universal preferences, she told him. Beatrice brought 2 bowls of soup. He prefers the page because you prefer the page. That is not a useful preference. It is very useful to him. Selina lifted Miso and recovered the missing section. Beneath him was Professor De Vera's latest comment. Do not confuse a delayed defense with a failed one. Build the work you can defend honestly. The sentence reached beyond the dissertation. For years, Selina had measured her life against an imagined schedule. At 38, she believed she should already have finished the degree, established a career, purchased a home, and made every sacrifice understandable in retrospect. The fellowship had not erased that private calendar. It had simply given her more ways to feel behind. She closed the laptop. Ate? Beatrice asked, using the Tagalog word for older sister. What is wrong? Nothing is wrong tonight. That sounded serious. Selina looked around the apartment. The fogged window, the ordinary dishes, Miso trying to investigate the soup and her sister waiting without pressure. I keep treating my life as if it missed the correct route, Selina said. But there was never one route. Beatrice smiled. You built an entire model to learn what I could have told you. Your method lacked formal proof. My method has known you longer. The following week, Selina presented the revised framework to the committee. She did not disguise the delay. She showed how each workshop had changed the model and named the participants whose practical knowledge shaped the new guarantees. Malcolm studied the final slide. Who defines a responsible choice now? No single person, Selina answered. Designers define boundaries with the people affected by them. The system explains consequences. Human beings retain the choice when several responsible options remain. Professor De Vera nodded from the screen. Evelyn approved the revised research plan. Malcolm closed the document. You answered the question without pretending it has a permanent answer. Outside the conference room, Adrian offered his hand. Selina shook it. You changed the central claim of your dissertation 6 weeks before the original deadline, he said. Yes. You do realize most researchers avoid that. Most transportation systems cannot avoid reality. He smiled, not at her expense, but in recognition. Through the glass doors, Miso waited with Beatrice beneath the covered walkway. The direct courtyard path was open, yet the cat chose the longer route beside the library. Selina no longer wondered whether it was the fastest path. It was the one he had reason to trust. The first city outside Calder to test Selina's model was San Mateo, and the first person to challenge it was a planner who wanted it to succeed. Jordan Patel managed a small network connecting train stations, medical offices, shopping districts, and residential neighborhoods. He welcomed the Calder team into a bright municipal conference room and placed a printed map across the table. Your campus pilot is impressive, he said. This is not a campus. The city network involved more vehicles, changing traffic, and riders who did not share schedules or destinations. Jordan proposed a 2-week advisory test in which the model would make recommendations without controlling dispatch decisions. Before agreeing, Selina spent a full morning riding the routes. She watched commuters check the platform clock, an office assistant balance 2 supply boxes against a seat, and a woman choose a slower bus because its stop had a covered bench. None of those decisions appeared remarkable. Together, they reminded Selina that a city network was not an abstract structure spread across a screen. It was a sequence of small negotiations between time, comfort, responsibility, and trust. Selina agreed immediately. Adrian asked for 1 week. Jordan looked between them. Who is leading the deployment? Selina, Adrian said before she could answer. Then 2 weeks, Jordan replied. The test began smoothly. During the first 3 days, the model identified missed connections earlier than the existing software and gave dispatchers clear alternatives. On the 4th day, heavy roadwork changed travel times near the downtown station. The system adjusted without losing its guarantees. Selina did not allow the early numbers to become a celebration. Each evening, she asked dispatchers which recommendations they ignored and why. Their answers revealed small gaps. A loading zone that appeared open on the map, but was crowded every afternoon, a signal that changed too quickly for one shuttle to turn comfortably, and a stop whose electronic display was difficult to read in direct sunlight. The model could process thousands of connections, yet one sentence from an experienced operator could correct what months of data had missed. On the 5th day, recommendations began arriving too late. Not dangerously late, not dramatically late. They appeared 20 or 30 seconds after dispatchers had already made decisions. In a research report, the delay looked small. In the control room, it made the tool irrelevant. Eli blamed the larger data stream. Naomi suspected repeated verification checks. Adrian proposed using faster university servers. Selina watched the dispatchers. They were entering the same information twice, once in the city system and once in the test interface. The model is not slow, she said. We made the people slow. Jordan nodded. I was waiting for you to see it. Adrian looked surprised. You knew? I knew the workflow was awkward. I wanted to know whether your team would treat that as our failure or yours. The challenge was fair. Selina had designed a system that respected human authority, then added work to the humans expected to use it. She suspended the test for one afternoon. Adrian followed her into the municipal hallway. We could finish the 2 weeks and correct the interface before the report. The dispatchers would spend another week compensating for our design. Jordan agreed to the test. Agreement does not make wasted effort responsible. He glanced through the control room window. Suspending it may affect the regional grant. Then the grant will measure whether we learned anything. Selina expected resistance. Instead, Adrian exhaled and nodded. What do you need from me? Help Eli connect the systems without copying private rider details. Naomi and I will reduce the verification steps. Jordan will decide what information dispatchers actually need to enter. And the report? It begins with the suspension. They rebuilt the interface in 3 days. The city system sent only the minimum required information. Recommendations appeared inside the dispatcher's existing screen. Explanations could be expanded when needed, but did not crowd urgent choices. When the test resumed, the average response arrived 14 seconds earlier than before. More importantly, no one entered the same information twice. Jordan approved a longer pilot with one condition. 2 dispatchers would join the design team as paid advisors. Agreed, Selina said. That evening, the Calder team walked to a small cafe near the station. They ordered sandwiches and tea, taking over a corner table with laptops and folders. The mood was light for the first time all week. Eli raised his glass of iced tea. To our most successful suspension. Naomi touched her glass to his. We have several to choose from. Adrian looked at Selina. Do you ever celebrate results before identifying the next problem? Sometimes. When? I will let you know. He laughed, and Selina did too. The sound surprised her. Months earlier, his laughter had made her the object of a room's attention. Now it contained no challenge, no audience, and no demand. It was simply shared amusement after difficult work. Her phone rang. Beatrice appeared on the screen from the apartment, holding Miso against one shoulder. Someone is waiting for his evening report, she said. Miso reached toward the camera. Selina turned the phone so the team could see him. The pilot was suspended. Beatrice moved the phone closer to the cat. He says your methods remain questionable. His peer reviews lack detail. He has been sitting on your keyboard for an hour. That is a detailed objection. Adrian leaned into view. Tell him the revised system passed. Beatrice studied him through the screen. She had met Adrian several times, but had never stopped assessing whether his changed behavior was reliable. Miso wants to know who received credit, she said. Adrian did not miss the test. Selina led the deployment. The city dispatchers corrected the workflow. Naomi and Eli rebuilt the system. I argued for continuing too long. Beatrice nodded. He accepts the report. After the call, the others returned to their conversation. Selina watched the trains pass beyond the cafe window. She had spent much of her life believing trust arrived as a conclusion. A person proved worthy, and uncertainty ended. Adrian was teaching her something less comfortable. Trust could be a pattern of small choices, each one valid only until the next required decision. He had embarrassed her publicly. He had apologized without asking her to forget. Since then, he had stepped back when she led, admitted errors when they were his, and changed habits when apologies alone were insufficient. That did not create a debt. It created evidence. When they left the cafe, Adrian walked beside her toward the station. Thank you for stopping the test, he said. You are thanking me for delaying your grant. I am thanking you for protecting the purpose of it. The evening train arrived with a rush of warm air. Selina stepped inside, then turned before the doors closed. That answer was worth celebrating, she said. Adrian smiled as the train carried her home. The marriage joke returned on a rainy Thursday in November. Selina had just completed a regional transportation forum when a moderator opened the audience questions. The presentation had focused on the San Mateo pilot, shared design, and the limits of automated recommendations. For 40 minutes, no one had mentioned the lecture hall recording. Then a man in the second row stood with his phone raised. Professor Keller promised to marry you if you solved the equation, he said. You solved it. Is he keeping his word? The room responded with uneasy laughter. Selina felt the old heat along her face, but she did not lower her eyes. Adrian sat at the end of the panel. She could sense him preparing to speak. She answered first. A careless public joke is not a promise, she said. Marriage is not a prize for solving mathematics, and I am not the conclusion of someone else's sentence. If you have a question about the research, I will be glad to answer it. The moderator called on another person. The forum continued, but the clip reached the internet before Selina left the building. By evening, the old recording and her new answer appeared side by side. Some viewers admired her boundaries. Others invented a romance, an argument, or a secret agreement. Calder's communications director suggested a joint interview to close the subject. Selina declined. Adrian declined separately. They learned about each other's decision the next morning. I thought refusing together might create another story, Adrian explained. It would. I prepared a statement instead. You should approve it before I release anything. He passed her a single page. The statement did not call the remark harmless. It said Adrian had made an inappropriate joke, Selina owed him nothing, and her work should be discussed on its merits. It ended by asking the public and university community to respect her privacy. Selina changed one sentence. Where he had written that she had transformed his research, she wrote that her research had corrected and extended a shared model. You removed the complement, he said. I removed ownership disguised as a compliment. He read the revision. Agreed. The statement reduced requests for several days. It did not eliminate them. Selina discovered that controlling her own voice did not mean controlling every interpretation. Maturity was not the power to silence noise. It was the ability to keep the noise from choosing her direction. There were moments when that discipline cost more than she admitted. She stopped opening comment sections, but still imagined what they contained. She worried that every ordinary conversation with Adrian would be rearranged into evidence for a story neither of them had chosen. At work, she remained direct. At home, she sometimes sat quietly beside the window until Beatrice placed tea near her hand. Selina did not call the attention harmless. She simply refused to let discomfort become either a performance or a prison. Her dissertation work continued. So did ordinary life. One Saturday, Miso needed a routine examination at the veterinary clinic. Beatrice was working and Selina's car would not start. She stood in the apartment parking lot with the carrier at her feet and a mechanic's appointment on her phone. Adrian happened to call about a proof revision. You sound distracted, he said. My car has selected an anchor state. Is that the technical term for broken? Temporarily unavailable. He offered to drive them. Selina's first instinct was to refuse. The clinic was 20 minutes away. The rain had returned, and Miso had begun protesting from the carrier. Thank you, she said instead. Adrian arrived in an old green sedan with a blanket spread across the back seat. Miso complained during the entire journey. At each red light, Adrian answered him with a serious explanation of traffic law. He does not respect your authority, Selina said. We have that in common. She looked at him. You did not respect my authority when it exceeded my judgment, he clarified. You were right. At the clinic, the veterinarian pronounced Miso healthy and slightly too enthusiastic about dinner. Adrian waited in the lobby, reading Selina's latest dissertation chapter. He had marked questions in the margins, but had not rewritten a single sentence. On the drive home, they stopped at a bakery. Adrian bought coffee for himself, tea for Selina, and nothing for Miso despite prolonged negotiation through the carrier door. The errand felt unexpectedly normal. No lecture hall watched them, no project required a decision, and neither tried to make the afternoon signify more than it did. Selina recognized how rare that had become. Public attention had turned every shared appearance into a possible headline. Sitting in a rain-darkened parking lot with a dissatisfied cat, she recovered the simple freedom of speaking to another person without preparing a defense. They sat beneath the awning while rain silvered the parking lot. Why did you make the joke? Selina asked. Adrian's hand became still around his cup. I have asked why you protected the model, she continued. I never asked why you spoke to me that way. He did not defend himself with the atmosphere of the lecture or the surprise of being challenged. I liked being the quickest person in the room, he said. When you saw the flaw immediately, I tried to make the moment mine again. Humor was the fastest way. Did you believe I could solve it? No. The honesty hurt less than a polished answer would have. When did that change? She asked. Before you finished the second line. But you let me continue in front of everyone. By then, stopping you would also have been about protecting myself. Selina watched rain gather at the edge of the awning. You cannot repair humiliation by becoming humble only in private. I know. Your statement helped. But it does not settle the account. There is no account. That is the point. He nodded slowly. On Monday, Adrian opened his undergraduate lecture with the original recording, paused before his joke. Selina did not attend, but he sent her the transcript afterward. He used the moment to teach how authority could turn curiosity into performance, and how public accountability required naming the mistake without centering the apology. He did not ask the students to praise him for learning. Selina read the transcript twice, then placed it in a drawer. That evening, she and Beatrice ate dinner while Miso chased a paper ball across the floor. Do you trust him? Beatrice asked. Selina considered the question. I trust what he has repeatedly chosen to do, she said. That sounds like a researcher's answer. It is also a woman's answer. Miso carried the paper ball to Selina and dropped it beside her chair. When she threw it, he ran after it without checking where it would land. Selina envied that certainty for only a moment. Then she returned to the life she was learning to choose without requiring guarantees. Selina's model passed every scheduled test and failed during an ordinary Monday commute. The extended San Mateo pilot had been running for 3 weeks. Dispatchers used its explanations, riders reported fewer missed connections, and the Regional Grant Committee planned a visit. The team had begun speaking cautiously about success. At 7:42 in the morning, a train arrived 4 minutes early. Early arrivals were uncommon, but not extraordinary. The model recognized the new transfer window and recommended sending 2 shuttles ahead of schedule. The first left with several passengers. The second waited for a connection the system predicted would arrive. It did not arrive because those riders had seen the first shuttle leave and chosen to walk to another stop. The model continued protecting a transfer that no longer existed. One unnecessary wait created another, and within 12 minutes the recommendations across the downtown area were based on passengers who had already changed their minds. Jordan disabled the advisory feed. No one was harmed. Dispatchers restored the regular schedule within minutes, yet the failure reached the central claim of Selina's work. The system preserved options without recognizing when people independently created new ones. In the control room, Adrian asked whether the passenger estimates were wrong. The estimates were correct when they were recorded, Naomi said. Then the state expired too slowly, Eli added. Selina watched the silent map. No, we assumed people would remain inside the choices we could see. Jordan turned toward her. Can you fix that? I do not know yet. The grant committee would arrive in 2 days. Adrian suggested postponing the visit. Eli wanted to build a probability adjustment. Naomi warned that guessing at unobserved passenger decisions could create false confidence. Jordan offered to describe the event as a temporary data interruption. Selina appreciated his wish to protect the project, but the phrase would have blamed information for a mistaken assumption made by its designers. She asked him to record the event plainly. The system had continued recommending a connection after passengers independently chose different routes. Naming the failure accurately did not make it larger. It made it available for correction. Selina asked for the logs and returned to Calder. For 6 hours, she tested revisions. Every solution created another assumption. A faster expiration removed valid transfers. A probability estimate made the model decisive without making it informed. Asking dispatchers to confirm passenger movement returned the burden they had worked to remove. At 7 that evening, Adrian found her alone in the laboratory. Beatrice called me, he said. You missed dinner. Selina did not look away from the screen. She should not call my colleagues to manage me. She called because Miso is sitting beside the door and refuses his dinner. That made Selina turn. He never refuses dinner. Apparently, he objects to the absence of his preferred person. Selina saved the simulation. At the apartment, Miso immediately left the door, ate every piece of food in his bowl, and behaved as if no protest had occurred. Beatrice folded her arms. He manipulated the data, Selina said. He communicated through available channels. Adrian remained near the entrance. I can leave. Beatrice pointed toward the table. You brought her home. You can have soup. During dinner, no one discussed the model. Beatrice described a disagreement about scheduling at work. Adrian admitted he had purchased a plant for his office and forgotten to water it. Selina listened as rain tapped the window, and Miso moved hopefully between chairs. The ordinariness loosened something in her mind. Miso had not refused food because his appetite disappeared. He had refused the situation offered to him. When the situation changed, he acted immediately. The empty bowl alone could not explain why. Intent cannot be inferred from position, Selina said. Beatrice paused with her spoon halfway to her mouth. Are we discussing the cat or transportation? Both, but only one consented to the research. She opened her notebook. The model did not need to predict every private decision. It needed to recognize when its representation of a group had become unreliable. Unexpected movement, an early train, a partially filled departure, a sudden change in walking volume could lower confidence in the passenger state. The system could release the old recommendation and ask dispatchers to observe rather than invent certainty. Adrian read the outline over her shoulder. A confidence reset, triggered by evidence that people have new options outside the model. Will it recover quickly enough? We test tomorrow. It recovered in 9 seconds. The revised system did not guess where the passengers went. It marked the previous group as unresolved, stopped protecting the absent transfer, and rebuilt recommendations from observable conditions. Naomi verified that the reset did not erase accessibility guarantees. Eli reduced the computation so dispatchers received the warning before acting. The grant committee arrived as scheduled. Selina began the presentation with the Monday failure. One reviewer frowned. You had 3 weeks of positive results. Why center one irregular event? Because regular events show what a system expects, Selina said. Irregular events show what it assumes. She explained that responsible tools had to leave room for people to change their minds. Preserving choice meant more than keeping known routes open. It meant recognizing that human beings could select paths the system had not designed. The committee approved continued funding for 6 months, contingent on independent evaluation of the confidence reset. Outside the municipal building, the team reacted with exhausted relief. Eli wanted a large meal. Naomi wanted 8 hours of sleep. Adrian wanted to walk to the station before the next rain began. Selina remained on the steps with her phone in her hand. Professor De Vera had sent a message during the meeting. The revised dissertation pathway was formally approved. If Selina completed the manuscript and defense, her degree could be awarded the following spring. For a moment, the city moved quietly around her. Buses arrived, doors opened, and people crossed between routes with purposes no model could fully contain. Adrian noticed her expression. Good news? She handed him the phone. His smile appeared slowly. You are going to finish. If the committee accepts the work, they will examine it. Selina appreciated the correction. Certainty would have made the achievement feel borrowed. Honest possibility made it hers. They will examine it, she agreed. That night she returned home before dinner. Miso waited beside the door but made no dramatic protest. Beatrice placed 3 clean pages on the table, ready for the next section of the dissertation. Selina wrote until midnight. She no longer believed strength meant never failing, never pausing, or never needing to revise a plan. Strength was the discipline to face what the evidence changed without allowing disappointment to become identity. When she finally closed the laptop, Miso settled across her feet. Outside, the fog hid the distant routes. Selina could not see where every road led. For the first time, she did not need to. 3 weeks before Selina's dissertation deadline, the most generous offer of her career threatened to take the work away from her. The offer came from Northline Systems, her transportation technology company, with polished offices overlooking San Francisco Bay. Its executives wanted to fund the final independent evaluation, expand the San Mateo pilot, and place Selina in charge of a new research division. The salary was nearly 3 times her fellowship income. There was one condition: Northline would own the model. Selina sat across from 2 executives, while Adrian and a Calder attorney joined by video. A proposed contract lay open on the table. It credited Selina as the original researcher, but gave Northline authority over licensing, data, and future changes. "You would have resources no university can match," said Marissa Cole, the company's director of partnerships. "Your system could reach 20 cities within a year." "Could those cities inspect how recommendations are made?" Selina asked. "They would receive performance reports." "That was not my question." Marissa's expression remained pleasant. "The underlying implementation would be proprietary." Selina looked through the glass wall at the bay. Ferries crossed the water in straight, visible lines. The routes appeared simple from 30 floors above. "Community advisors helped define the guarantees," she said. "Dispatchers changed the workflow. Public agencies provided the conditions that made validation possible. Why should one company own what all of them helped build?" "Because ownership allows investment," Marissa replied. "Without investment, good research often remains a paper." The argument was not false. That made it difficult. Marissa pushed a second page toward her. It contained projected adoption numbers, expanded staffing, and a relocation allowance generous enough for Selina to buy a home within commuting distance. The figures awakened every practical instinct she possessed. She imagined a room for her mother when she visited, a quieter place for Beatrice, and savings that did not depend on calculating each unexpected expense. Refusing control was easy in theory. Refusing security required her to acknowledge what security could mean. "You do not need to answer today," Marissa said, "but expansion moves quickly. Another company may build a simpler version first. Then your concern is not only whether this work reaches people," Selina replied. "It is whether you own it before someone else does." Marissa did not deny it. Public benefit and commercial competition can exist together. They can. That does not mean they should have equal authority. After the meeting, Selina and Adrian walked along the waterfront. Wind lifted the edges of the contract inside her folder. "It would solve the funding problem," he said, "and create an authority problem. You would direct the division. Until the company and I disagreed." Adrian did not try to persuade her. "What do you want instead?" Selina watched a ferry approach the terminal. "A public partnership. Cities can pay for implementation, but the decision rules remain inspectable. Advisors keep a voice. No agency is trapped if it leaves. That will be slower. Slow is not always failure." Back at Calder, she presented the alternative to Evelyn, Maya, Jordan, and the university. Northline could provide engineering support without exclusive ownership. Calder would publish the core framework. Participating cities would share improvements, and paid community panels would review major changes. The proposal pleased no one completely. Calder wanted stronger licensing revenue. Northline wanted more control. City attorneys wanted simpler responsibilities. Selina spent 10 days in meetings when she should have been finishing her dissertation. During one meeting, a university administrator suggested removing paid community panels after the first year to reduce costs. Selina asked which other research positions would become unpaid at the same time. No one offered one. In another, Northline requested the right to delay publication of changes for 6 months. Naomi demonstrated how such a delay could conceal a known limitation from cities already using the tool. The clause disappeared. Adrian attended only when technical history was needed. When officials directed questions to him that belonged to Selina, he answered, "Doctoral candidate Mercado leads this negotiation." At first, the repeated correction felt ceremonial. By the 4th meeting, everyone addressed Selina directly. At home, pages accumulated beside untouched laundry. Beatrice found her asleep at the table one morning, cheek resting on a printed proof while Miso occupied the laptop. "You cannot defend a dissertation you are using as a pillow," Beatrice said. Selina sat up. "The paper quality is excellent. Why are you solving the future of public technology this week?" "Because they attached it to the evaluation my degree requires." "Then separate the choices." Selina frowned. Beatrice placed breakfast beside her. Your model does that. Which decision must happen now? And which one are other people calling urgent because urgency benefits them? Miso stepped off the keyboard, revealing an email from Professor De Vera. It contained a similar instruction in less patient language. Submit the manuscript. The industry can survive 48 hours without your supervision. Selina laughed despite herself. She turned off her phone for one day. Naomi checked the final proofs. Eli confirmed the simulation archive. Maya verified the practical examples. Adrian read the conclusion and returned it with only 3 questions. At 11:36 that night, Selina sent the completed manuscript to her committee. For several seconds, she stared at the confirmation message. She had imagined submission as a moment of release. Instead, she noticed a typo in the email subject and experienced a powerful desire to recall the entire package. Naomi, still connected by video, saw her expression. "Do not touch anything," Naomi said. "The subject line says, 'Revised Final Manuscript.' It implies there was an unrevised final manuscript. Close the laptop. Precision matters. Sleep matters." Beatrice reached across the table and closed the laptop herself. Miso immediately sat on it, providing an enforcement mechanism stronger than Naomi's remote instructions. The title page carried her full name. Beneath it appeared the names of the researchers, planners, dispatchers, staff members, and community advisors whose work had changed the project. Miso was absent from the acknowledgements by Beatrice's firm advice, though Selina thanked the ordinary observations that restore intellectual humility. The next morning, Northline accepted a non-exclusive engineering agreement for the independent evaluation. It was smaller than its original offer and large enough to continue the work. 2 other cities joined the public partnership. Adrian read the announcement in Selina's office. "You refused 3 times the salary. I refused 1 form of ownership. Do you regret it?" Selina considered the bills in her desk drawer, the apartment she still rented, and the practical ease that more money could provide. "Ask me on an expensive day." He smiled. "Fair." She closed the contract. "I did not choose hardship. I chose terms I can live with. Those are not the same thing." Outside her window, Miso walked along the courtyard with Beatrice. He stopped at the familiar bench, but only long enough to inspect a fallen leaf before continuing. Selina's manuscript was finished. Her future was not. For once, the difference felt like freedom. On the morning of Selina's defense, Miso escaped from his carrier and entered Lecture Hall A before anyone could stop him. Beatrice followed with the empty carrier. Adrian abandoned a stack of programs. 2 students near the entrance tried to help, but Miso moved beneath the seats with the calm confidence of a cat who believed the building had been designed for him. Selina stood at the front beside her presentation screen, wearing a dark blue suit and a small pearl pin sent by her mother from the Philippines. She had slept for 4 hours. At dawn, she had revised 1 transition, restored the earlier version, and then discovered she could no longer remember why either mattered. Beatrice took the laptop away and made her eat rice and eggs while their mother spoke through the phone. "Do not perform intelligence," her mother had said. "Explain what you know. Say what you do not know. Come home afterward." The advice was so ordinary that it steadied her more than every rehearsal. "Leave him," she said. "He will return when being pursued stops entertaining him." As if to prove her point, Miso emerged beside the first row and sat down. The defense was held in the same room where Adrian had made his joke 10 months earlier. This time, no phones were raised without permission. Professor De Vera appeared on the central screen from Quezon City. Evelyn and Malcolm sat at the committee table. 2 independent evaluators occupied the front row with Maya and Jordan. Renee, David, Rosa, Naomi, and Eli sat behind them. Selina's mother and several relatives watched through a private video link. Adrian took a seat near the aisle. He had no role in the examination. Selina began without mentioning the viral recording. She described consequence groups, anchor states, directional memory, expiring options, shared guarantees, and confidence resets. She showed where each idea had failed and what the failure revealed. Her final slide contained no triumphant graph. It showed a dispatcher's screen with 3 responsible choices and a clear statement of what the system did not know. "A useful model does not replace human judgment," Selina said. It makes consequences visible while preserving the authority to choose. The questions lasted 90 minutes. Evelyn challenged the mathematical boundary between uncertainty and insufficient data. Malcolm asked whether shared design could become an excuse for avoiding accountability. One evaluator questioned whether the confidence reset would scale across cities. Professor de Vera returned to a proof Selina had first attempted years earlier in Quezon City. Selina did not answer quickly to demonstrate confidence. She paused when she needed to think. Twice she said she did not know. Once she corrected a number on her own slide. The room did not become smaller when she admitted a limit. It became honest. The independent evaluators then presented an unexpected result. During the 6-month review, the confidence reset had reduced unsupported recommendations, but dispatchers in one city activated manual review more frequently than expected. A polished defense would have treated the outcome as caution. Selina recognized it as evidence that the interface explained uncertainty without helping workers resolve it. "The safeguard is functioning," she said, "but the support around it is incomplete. The next version should connect uncertainty notices to local observation tools developed with dispatchers. Otherwise, responsibility is transferred rather than shared." Evelyn wrote something in the margin of her copy. Malcolm asked whether that limitation weakened Selina's central claim. "It narrows the claim," Selina said. "That makes it stronger." At the end, Malcolm asked the final question. "Your framework protects the possibility of changing direction. Is that a mathematical feature or a personal philosophy?" Selina looked across the room. She saw Beatrice holding the carrier, Renee in her facilities jacket, her research team, the committee, and Adrian sitting where hundreds of students had once laughed. "It began as a mathematical feature," she said. "I learned why it matters personally. A route can be interrupted without becoming meaningless. A person can begin again without denying the path that brought her there. Responsible systems should preserve that possibility, because responsible communities should too." The committee asked everyone to leave. In the courtyard, fog drifted between the buildings. Miso walked on his harness around the bench, while Beatrice refreshed her phone every few seconds. "They will not send the answer to your phone," Selina said. "They should modernize the process." Adrian stood several feet away, giving Selina room. She noticed that his hands were less steady than hers. "You look worried," she said. "I am respecting uncertainty." Very academically. The door opened after 23 minutes. Professor de Vera remained on the screen when Selina returned. Evelyn asked her to stand. "The committee has accepted the dissertation," she said. "Subject to minor formatting revisions, the degree is approved." Selina heard applause through the video connection before she understood that her mother had begun it. The room joined in. Beatrice covered her mouth with both hands. Naomi hugged Eli. Renee wiped her eyes and then denied doing so. Adrian remained beside his chair until Selina looked toward him. "Congratulations, Dr. Mercado," he said. The title reached her without feeling borrowed. It also did not erase the woman who had signed custodial schedules, calculated grocery costs, and kept unfinished work inside a bag. Dr. Mercado was not a replacement for Ms. Mercado. The title named an achievement. It did not rank the lives she had lived while reaching it. Selina crossed the room and embraced her sister first, then Renee, then Naomi, Eli, Maya, and the others. When she reached Adrian, he offered his hand. She looked at it. "After 10 months, you have become very formal. I am trying not to assume." Selina stepped forward and embraced him briefly. That is measurable progress. Later, the group gathered in the courtyard for photographs. Miso refused to face the camera. Professor de Vera remained on a tablet held by Beatrice. Selina's mother cried openly from another screen and instructed everyone to make sure her daughter ate. Before the formal photograph, Selina asked the facilities team to stand beside the research team. The photographer attempted to arrange professors in front and staff behind. Selina changed the order. Renee stood on one side of her, Professor de Vera's screen on the other, and Adrian several places away among the collaborators. The resulting picture did not present one genius surrounded by helpers. It showed a community whose different forms of work had made the result possible. There were pastries, tea, and rice dishes prepared by friends. No speeches had been planned, But Renee raised her cup. "To the woman who knew the building before the building knew her," she said. Selina shook her head, smiling. "The building is not sentient. Today it is." Laughter moved through the courtyard, warm and unguarded. When the others began leaving, Selina returned alone to Lecture Hall A. The board was clean. Afternoon light rested across the rows. Adrian appeared at the door but did not enter. "Do you need a moment?" he asked. "Yes." He nodded and walked away. Selina stood where she had once placed a mop against the wall. She did not try to replace the memory of humiliation with the memory of victory. Both belonged to the room. Neither defined its future. She touched the pearl pin at her collar and whispered the title once so only she could hear it. "Dr. Mercado." Then she turned off the lights and left the door open behind her. 6 months after the defense, Calder offered Selina a permanent position and Adrian offered her distance. The university created a Center for Responsible Mobility, with Selina as its director. The appointment included research funding, teaching authority, and a public partnership with 4 California cities. It also placed her on the same academic level as Adrian. He congratulated her in the morning. That afternoon, he requested reassignment from every committee that could evaluate her work. Selina found the request in an administrative email. She crossed the hallway to his office. "Are you leaving the project?" she asked. "No. I am removing a conflict." "What conflict?" Adrian closed his office door but remained beside it. "I would like to ask you to dinner for reasons unrelated to transportation." Selina said nothing. "I have wanted to ask for some time," he continued. "I did not because I supervised part of your fellowship and advised the project connected to your degree. Your new appointment ends that imbalance, but only if I formally step away from evaluation." The careful explanation was so different from the careless sentence that had begun their story that Selina felt an unexpected ache. "Are you asking now?" she said. "Only if the reassignment is approved and only if you want me to." "That is a remarkable number of conditions for dinner. I have learned to respect boundary conditions." She almost laughed, then chose honesty. "I need time. Take it." He did not ask how much. The following weeks were filled with beginnings. Selina taught her first graduate seminar. She invited Renee to speak about infrastructure that academic maps ignored. Jordan and Maya led a workshop for city planners. Naomi accepted a research coordinator position, and Eli began developing an open verification library. Selina's first class tested her in ways the defense had not. A student named Lucas submitted an elegant model that eliminated slower routes to improve efficiency. When Selina asked what happened to riders who relied on those routes, he answered that the percentage was statistically small. Years earlier, she might have dismantled the argument in front of the room. Instead, she asked him to spend an afternoon with the transportation office and speak with 3 riders affected by the removal. He returned the next week with a less elegant model and a more careful definition of efficiency. "The revision has too many exceptions," he said. "Those are not exceptions," Selina replied. "They are people your first definition excluded." Teaching showed her that authority could reproduce the very blindness she had resisted. She began each seminar with one rule: no student would be praised for certainty they had not earned, and no question would be turned into entertainment. Beatrice received an offer of her own, a supervisory role at a health services office in Sacramento. "It is a good position," she said at the apartment table, "but I would have to move." Selina's first response formed instantly. They could find Beatrice something closer. The commute was unreasonable. The rent in Sacramento would complicate their shared expenses. Then she heard the fear beneath her practical arguments. For years, the sisters had been each other's fixed point. Beatrice had supported Selina's return to research. Selina had built every budget around their household. A new route for one of them would change both. "Do you want it?" Selina asked. "Yes." "Then we will plan the move." Beatrice studied her. "You said that faster than you felt it. Emotional accuracy sometimes requires revision." They spent a month visiting apartments, comparing neighborhoods, and dividing furniture. Miso objected to every empty box, then claimed each one in turn. Selina found a smaller place near Calder with a sunny window and permission for cats. The sisters disagreed over the rice cooker. Beatrice said it had been a shared purchase. Selina produced an old receipt showing she had paid for it. Beatrice pointed out that possession of a receipt did not measure emotional reliance. They solved the dispute by buying a new one for Sacramento and packing the familiar cooker with Selina. Beneath the humor lay a change neither could solve with receipts. Their mother worried that Beatrice's move meant the family was becoming scattered. Selina explained that closeness could not depend on keeping every person in the same place. She made a calendar for visits, then deliberately left several weekends unplanned so affection would not become another obligation managed by a spreadsheet. On Beatrice's final evening in Daly City, the sisters ate takeout on the floor because the table had already been packed. "You know moving does not mean disappearing," Beatrice said. "I know. You can say you will miss me." Selina looked at her younger sister. "I will miss you every day." Beatrice leaned against her shoulder. "That is better than a transportation analysis." After the move, the apartment sounded too quiet. Selina worked late for 3 nights before recognizing the familiar habit. When life changed, she made herself useful until feeling became unnecessary. On the 4th evening, she closed her laptop at 6. She called Adrian. "Was the reassignment approved?" she asked. "5 months ago. Were you planning to tell me? You asked for time. 5 months is excessive. I did not know the acceptable interval." Selina looked at Miso, who was sitting inside the last unpacked box. "Dinner tomorrow, 7. No reporters, no equations, and no promises." There was a pause. "I can satisfy 2 of those conditions," Adrian said. "Which condition is difficult?" "We are mathematicians. Equations may occur naturally." She laughed. 7. They met at a quiet Filipino restaurant in South San Francisco. Adrian arrived early and did not pretend familiarity with dishes he had never tried. Selina ordered pancit, vegetables, and warm calamansi tea. He asked about her childhood in Quezon City. She asked why he had become a professor. Adrian had chosen a table away from the windows. When the server recognized Selina from a university article, he congratulated her on the center and moved on without mentioning the old video. The restraint allowed the evening to remain theirs. Halfway through dinner, Adrian reached automatically for the check. Selina placed her hand on it first. "We divide it," she said. "I invited you. You waited 5 months. I accelerated the schedule. They divided it." The small negotiation made Selina more comfortable than any grand gesture could have done. Their conversation wandered beyond Calder for the first time. Adrian spoke about repairing radios with his father and discovering that mathematics gave names to patterns he had heard before understanding them. Selina described crowded jeepney rides, university libraries, and the precision with which her mother planned household expenses. Neither mentioned the viral video until dessert. "If we do this," Selina said, "the story will return. Then we do not owe anyone access to the truth between us. And if this does not work, we behave with care and continue being colleagues." Selina appreciated that he did not offer certainty. Outside the restaurant, fog softened the lights along the street. Adrian waited without moving closer. "May I see you again?" he asked. Selina thought of responsible choices, incomplete information, and paths no model could guarantee. "Yes," she said. "You may." Adrian did not propose marriage when Selina's model reached 10 cities, when she received a National Research Award, or when a magazine placed them together on its cover, despite their refusal to discuss their private life. He proposed on an ordinary Wednesday, after Miso knocked a bowl of flour onto the kitchen floor. By then, Selina and Adrian had been together for 18 months. They had learned one another outside the dramatic frame strangers preferred. Adrian misplaced his keys whenever he carried more than one bag. Selina became impatient with recipes and altered them before trying the original. He needed quiet in the morning. She solved difficult proofs aloud. Miso slept on Adrian's coat but still went to Selina when thunder disturbed the windows. They had also met each other's families without trying to make the meetings perfect. Adrian visited Quezon City with Selina and listened while her mother corrected his pronunciation of relatives' names. He rode public transit with Professor de Vera, who questioned him about both mathematics and intentions. Selina met Adrian's parents in Oregon, where his father showed her the radios they had repaired together. His mother asked no invasive questions about the viral video and sent Selina home with 3 notebooks because Adrian had said she always filled them. On the flight back to California, Selina realized their relationship had expanded without asking either person to shrink. She could love the life they shared and remain responsible for the life that was hers. They disagreed without turning every difference into evidence about the relationship. Adrian wanted to replace a worn couch. Selina insisted it had another year. Selina worked past dinner. Adrian reminded her once, then ate without making hunger a moral argument. They visited Beatrice in Sacramento, called Selina's mother every Sunday, and spent some weekends doing nothing that could be described in a research report. Their life became important because it was ordinary. Before the proposal, they had discussed marriage without setting a schedule. Selina wanted her mother able to attend. Adrian wanted a ceremony small enough that every guest knew them rather than the headline. Both agreed that they would maintain separate professional offices and disclose collaboration whenever their work overlapped. Practical conversation did not diminish romance for Selina. It gave affection a structure sturdy enough to live inside. That Wednesday, Selina was preparing bread for a community dinner at the center. Miso leaped onto the counter, startled himself, and sent the flour bowl to the floor. A white cloud covered the cabinets, Adrian's shoes, and most of the orange parts of the cat. For 3 seconds, no one moved. Then Selina laughed so hard she had to sit down. Adrian caught Miso before he tracked flour through the apartment. "Your research assistant has compromised the environment. He was never approved for laboratory access." They cleaned the floor together. Adrian swept while Selina wiped flour from Miso's paws. The bread dough waited unfinished on the counter. When the kitchen was almost clean, Adrian set the broom aside. "Selina!" Something in his voice made her look up. He did not kneel immediately. He stood in the imperfect kitchen, flour still marking one shoulder, and spoke with visible nervousness. "The first time I connected marriage to you, I treated it as a joke and made a choice for an audience," he said. "I cannot erase that sentence. I can only make sure this one is different." Selina's laughter faded into stillness. "There is no problem you must solve," Adrian continued. "There is no promise you must collect. You owe me nothing. I love the life we have built, including the revisions, the uncertainty, your impossible standards for accurate event titles, and a cat who respects no model. I would like to keep building that life with you." Only then did he kneel and open a small box. The ring was simple, with a pale blue stone set between 2 narrow bands. "Selina Bautista Mercado, will you marry me?" Miso attempted to inspect the box. Selina lifted him with one arm and looked at Adrian. The old lecture hall flashed through her memory. The mop, the laughter, the raised phones, and the professor who had believed he controlled the meaning of the moment. That memory no longer held authority over either of them. "Stand up," she said. Adrian's face changed. "Is that a no?" "It is a request for equal eye level." He stood quickly. Selina placed Miso on the floor. "I will not marry you because I solved your equation. I know. I will not marry you because you apologized. I know. And I will not promise that our life will always be simple. I would not believe you if you did." She allowed him to wait one more breath. "I will marry you because you learned to listen, because I learned to trust without surrendering judgment, and because we choose each other when no audience is present." Adrian's eyes brightened. "Is that a yes?" "That is a carefully supported yes." He slid the ring onto her finger. It fit. Their first call was to Beatrice, who answered from her office. "Finally," she said, after Selina showed the ring. "That is not an appropriate response to surprising evidence," Selina replied. There was nothing surprising about it. Their second call was to Selina's mother. She asked Adrian 3 practical questions about his health, his intentions, and whether he understood that marriage joined families rather than only individuals. He answered each one seriously. Then she gave her blessing and began planning a visit. Calder learned the news 2 days later. Selina and Adrian sent one statement. They had chosen to marry after a private relationship that began long after the fellowship's supervisory boundaries ended. They would offer no further comment. The internet rediscovered the old title immediately. Some posts declared that Adrian had kept his promise. Selina did not correct all of them. Beatrice did, occasionally and with great enthusiasm, until Selina asked her to stop arguing with strangers. "But they are wrong," Beatrice protested. "They are also endless." "That is an inefficient system." "Exactly. Withdraw your resources." Instead, she opened the center's weekly seminar with a different account. "A prediction can resemble an outcome and still misunderstand its cause," she told the students. The professor's joke did not become destiny. Two people changed, built trust, and made a new decision. Afterward, she found Adrian beside the courtyard bench. "Did you just use our engagement to teach causal inference?" he asked. An inaccurate public narrative required correction. He offered his arm. "Where are we going?" "To finish the bread, we promised the community dinner. Another binding agreement. This one has a deadline." They walked home through the fog, carrying no certainty about every year ahead. They carried something better, a choice neither laughter nor obligation had made for them. The wedding took place in Calder's mathematics courtyard on a clear Saturday morning in May. The night before, fog had covered the campus so heavily that the planning team prepared an indoor alternative. Selina reviewed the weather forecast every hour until her mother gently removed the phone from her hand. "You designed a career around uncertainty," she said. "Surely you can survive clouds at a wedding." By sunrise, the fog had lifted. The courtyard remained damp, and the flowers held small drops of water that caught the morning light. Nothing about the day looked manufactured for a video. It looked cared for. Selina had rejected a hotel ballroom, a televised ceremony, and an offer from the university to turn the event into a public celebration. She and Adrian invited family, friends, co-workers, community advisors, and the people who had stayed after the spectacle ended. Rows of simple chairs faced the familiar bench. White and blue flowers bordered the walkway. Beatrice stood beside Selina. Naomi stood beside Adrian. Professor de Vera had flown from Quezon City, and Selina's mother sat in the first row holding both hands over her heart. Renee, David, Rosa, Eli, Maya, Jordan, Evelyn, and Malcolm filled the next rows. Several dispatches from San Mateo arrived together. Miso watched from a screened pet stroller decorated with one blue ribbon. He had been denied responsibility for the rings by unanimous decision. Selina wore an ivory dress with clean lines and the pearl pin at her waist. Adrian wore a navy suit. No one gave Selina away. She entered between her mother and Beatrice, then walked the final steps alone. The ceremony was brief. Adrian's vows did not mention the equation until the end. "I once tried to turn your intelligence into my moment," he said. "You taught me that love does not claim, rescue, or reward another person. It pays attention, it accepts correction, it protects the other person's freedom to remain fully herself. I promise to practice that love, especially when practice is harder than promise." Selina held his hands. "You entered my life through an error of judgment," she said. Gentle laughter moved through the chairs. "But you stayed by changing your judgment, repeatedly and without asking me to forget. I promise honesty without cruelty, independence without distance, and partnership without ownership. I will choose our life as it changes, not because the route is guaranteed, but because we will decide it together." They exchanged rings. When the officiant pronounced them married, the applause was warm rather than astonished. Adrian kissed Selina's forehead, and she embraced him while Miso objected loudly from the stroller. "He did not approve the final draft," Beatrice said. The reception was held inside Lecture Hall A and the adjoining courtyard. Tables replaced rows of seats. Filipino dishes stood beside food contributed by friends and community partners. A slideshow showed no image from the viral seminar. It showed ordinary moments instead. The research team around a cluttered table, dispatches marking a city map, Selina's defense, Beatrice's moving boxes, Adrian covered in flour, and Miso occupying documents he had not read. Near the board, Calder displayed the first page of Selina's published dissertation. Beside it hung a plaque announcing that the Center for Responsible Mobility had secured permanent public funding and partnerships with 12 cities. The center's work had grown beyond one model. It offered paid fellowships for workers returning to education, including staff from facilities, food service, transportation, and administration. Applicants were evaluated through experience and demonstrated ability rather than through a single conventional path. The first fellowship recipient was David, who had spent years improving Calder's building systems and had begun studying energy management at night. The second was a dining services supervisor, developing a method to reduce food waste without limiting meal choices. Selina reviewed their applications without treating her own story as the template they had to follow. Opportunity mattered precisely because it could open different doors for different people. Renee found Selina reading the plaque. "You changed the building," she said. Selina glanced toward the former co-workers laughing near the food table. "We changed who gets invited into its rooms. That sounds like a speech. It is one sentence. For you, that is a speech." Across the hall, Adrian spoke with Selina's mother, while Professor de Vera corrected Eli's description of an early proof. Beatrice released Miso from the stroller onto his harness. He walked directly to the front of the room and sat beneath the board. Someone asked Selina to recreate the original equation for a photograph. She declined. Instead, she wrote a new sentence in the center of the board. "A responsible path preserves the possibility of choice." Adrian approached and read it. "Is that about transportation or marriage?" "Both, but only one is peer-reviewed." "Which one?" "Ask me after several decades." He smiled and stood beside her as photographs were taken. Months later, married life looked less like a conclusion than a continuation. Selina directed the center and taught one course each semester. Adrian revised his lectures to make uncertainty and accountability visible parts of expertise. They sometimes worked together and sometimes deliberately did not. Beatrice visited twice a month. Selina's mother stayed for the summer and reorganized their kitchen within 3 days. Miso developed a preference for sleeping between Selina's dissertation and Adrian's lecture notes, as if maintaining equal jurisdiction. The old video never disappeared completely. Every few months, someone rediscovered it and shared the professor's laughing challenge, alongside the improbable fact that he and the Filipina custodian had eventually married. The abbreviated version made the world appear enchanted by destiny. The truth was quieter and more demanding. Selina had solved an equation, but the solution did not earn her a husband. It revealed work she had never ceased being capable of doing. Adrian had made a public mistake, but regret did not earn him forgiveness or love. Only sustained humility made trust possible. Miso had not guided them through magic. He had simply lived attentively, reminding observant people that blocked paths, changed conditions, and uncertain destinations were ordinary parts of moving forward. One evening, Selina and Adrian crossed the courtyard after the last seminar of the year. The campus was nearly empty. Miso walked between them on his harness and stopped at the bench where he had once waited through her night shifts. Selina sat down. Adrian joined her. "Do you ever think about what would have happened if you had ignored the equation?" he asked. "Sometimes." "And?" "A different life would not necessarily have been an empty one." He nodded. "No destiny, then?" "No. Something better." "What?" Selina watched Miso choose a path through the evening light. Her choice made in time to become a life. They rose and followed him, not because he knew the only way home, but because, for that moment, they had chosen the same direction. No one is required to become who they were before life changed. No mistake must remain the final definition of a person. A new beginning does not erase the road behind. It gathers every lesson from that road and turns it toward hope.